Previously in the Shortbox, we stepped into Last Call Electronics to meet Vic Morales, a man who extracts the truth from things the world has already written off. When the shattered phone of missing hiker Sarah Miller arrived in his shop, the authorities had already deemed the hardware catastrophically fried. But Vic restarted the heart of the machine. He watched her final 102 seconds, a mechanical hum, a spinning sky, and the horrifying realization that Sarah didn't slip from a cliff. She was plucked. Now the air in Vic's shop is turning to ice, the lights are flickering to a rhythm he doesn't recognize, and our digital pathologist is about to learn that by playing that video back, he didn't just solve a mystery, he rang a bell. Vic sat motionless. The Miller letter and $300 in cash rested beside the phone like an accusation. Outside, the warm Tennessee night pressed against the windows. Inside, the air had grown unnaturally cold. His breath misted in front of him, thin white clouds that had no right to form in the humid back room of Last Call Electronics. Buster lifted his head, ears twitching, and then tucked his nose under his tail with a low, uneasy whine. The fluorescent lights over the front counter began to flicker, slow, rhythmic pulses, exactly in time with the low thrum still vibrating from the powered phone on the anti-static mat. The blue glow of the old CRT monitor turned the workshop into a deep-sea trench, tools and solder spools casting long, wavering shadows that seemed to move just beyond the edge of sight. Vic leaned over the microscope again, scarred hand steady despite the dropping temperature. Under higher magnification, he saw it clearly. A fine silver-gray dust clinging to the copper traces around the battery terminals and memory chip. Not ordinary dirt. Not smoke or corrosion from the woods. It was metallic and faintly pearlescent and conductive. He brushed a speck onto a slide and touched it with a continuity probe. The multimeter spiked hard. This dust had turned the entire motherboard into an antenna. He exhaled another foggy breath. "You weren't just dropped, Sarah," he murmured. "Something used you." Vic powered up the old desktop and ran the audio file through his spectroanalyzer. The waveform of Sarah's voice looked human enough, full of wonder turned into unease. But the mechanical hum at 125 was different. It wasn't sound captured by the microphone. It was a clean, perfect, oscillating sine wave burned directly into the digital file, injected straight through the circuits. Vic's voice came out rough. "This wasn't recorded, Buster. It was injected, like the phone was screaming from the inside out." He checked the battery health log. At the exact moment of the hum, the internal temperature had spiked to 140 degrees in under a second, and then plummeted toward freezing. Heat drawn out like fuel. The old stories said spirits pulled warmth from the living to manifest. This one had used Sarah's phone as its battery. The shop felt heavier now. The rattling AC had gone strangely quiet, or maybe Vic had simply stopped hearing it. The fluorescent lights continued their synchronized flicker, and the blue CRT light made every corner of the room feel isolated, far from the noisy world outside. He picked up the old analog landline, the one with no screen, no apps, and dialed a number he kept for cases the police had wrote off. David answered on the second ring, voice calm but alert. "Vic? It's 4 a.m. This had better be important." "It is," Vic said. "Got a phone here with burned-in interference, not microphone audio, direct induction into the circuits. The battery temp spiked hard and then dropped to freezing. And there's silver-gray dust on the board, conductive, and I've never seen it before." He heard Laurel in the background, and then her voice joined the line, sharper. "Vic, if that frequency is burned straight into the logic board, you aren't just looking at a recording. You're looking at a doorway." David gave a short breath. "We had something like this in 74. Hikers on the 3-mile gap just over the state line. The birds went quiet, and then a mechanical hum that didn't come from the air. One had a transistor radio. When searchers found it 2 miles from the bodies, the speaker was still playing the exact hum on a loop. No batteries left. We called it the thrum." Laurel added, "And there's an older one, 1952 journal entry from the museum archives. The thrum of the gaps. Old-timers describe the sky slough, restless hosts that ride the ridges on quiet nights. They don't moan or rattle chains. They pluck people right off the ground by turning the air into vibration. Modern signals just make them stronger." Vic glanced at the flickering lights. "So what do I tell the Millers? They pay me to bring their daughter home the rest of the way. Do I say she slipped on a trail? Or do I tell them something older than these mountains reached down because she wanted 5 minutes of quiet?" The line stayed silent for a moment. "You're the digital pathologist, Vic," David said quietly. "You don't lie about the cause of death. Give them the fragments. The rest is theirs to carry. After he hung up, David emailed over 2 scanned files from the West Virginia Bigfoot Museum's private archives. Vic opened them on the glowing CRT screen. The first was a grainy PDF of handwritten 1952 journal entry titled The Thrum of the Gaps. Vic read the faded ink aloud, voice low and in the empty shop. The old-timers didn't call it a ghost. They called it the thrum. They said it didn't want your house, it wanted your heartbeat. It would turn the very air into a vibration until you weren't standing on the ground anymore. The second file was a typed 1974 incident report matching the hikers David had mentioned. Exact location overlap with Sarah's trail. Same sudden silence, same mechanical hum burned into electronics, same impossible distances between the bodies and their recovered gear. Vic stared at the pink-edged phone, cat stickers still smiling up at him. Sarah had gone into the woods chasing the same silence he had built these 4 walls to protect. Now both silences had been answered by the same ancient resonance, the thrum. He couldn't give the Millers a clean lie, not about this. He would call them in the morning and tell them the truth as he saw it. Their daughter hadn't simply fallen, she had been plucked. The thrum had used her phone as a doorway, drawn by the quiet she loved, and left a fragment of itself behind in the circuits. Vic gently snapped the back cover onto the phone, replaced the thick pink rubber protector, and left the power connected. The low thrum continued, soft, patient, and alive. Some ghosts didn't rattle chains, they vibrated circuits, and once you played their song back, they knew exactly where to find you. He stood, knees popping, and walked slowly to the front of the shop. The cash-only sign stared back at him under the flickering lights. For the first time in years, Last Call Electronics didn't feel like a refuge. It felt like a listening post. Buster padded after him and leaned warm and solid against his leg. Vic rested one scarred hand on the dog's head. Guess we're not alone anymore, old man. Outside, the Tennessee night stayed humid and ordinary. Inside, the temperature kept dropping. The lights kept flickering in perfect time with the heartbeat of the phone, and the silver-gray dust on the motherboard continued conducting a signal that had already found its way home. The thrum had followed Sarah's phone all the way to Atoka, and it was still listening. They say the ridges of the Appalachians are old, but the things that ride them are older. Vic Morales spent 20 years in the 101st learning that you never leave a man behind, but some souls aren't just lost, they're translated. They become part of the resonance, a frequency that bleeds through the silicon and the solder until the air itself starts to vibrate. Last Call Electronics used to be a refuge, now it's a listening post, and once you've heard the thrum, you never truly find silence again. We're filing this one away under unresolved anomalies. Keep your gear grounded and your eyes on the tree line. This has been Tales from the Shortbox.